This is Digital Music Trends 144 on the 7th of August 2013. This week, YouTube versus full screen, optimistic streaming forecasts, Spotify's new browse feature, Google's Chromecast, and artists developing bespoke sites for their fan bases. Hello everyone and welcome to Digital Music Trends, the weekly show bringing you the latest news and the latest trends in the digital music industry. So DMT is available as both audio and video on iTunes, most podcatchers, YouTube, Mixcloud, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Stitcher, and more. And you can follow the show on Twitter. The handle is @DGMusicTrends. Join the newly formed LinkedIn group or get in touch with the feedback, comments, or your thoughts on the stories we're about to cover on contact@digitalmusictrends.com. And this week on the show, I'm really happy to welcome Olivier de Simon, Head of Music at Your Turn. Hi, Olivier. How's it going today?
Hi, Andrea. I'm doing very good. You?
Great, thank you. And also joining us, unfortunately on an iPad, so we can't see her, but it's Yvette Modinou, co-founder of Rich Theme, which is a new music discovery service. So hi, Yvette, and great to have you on. How's it going?
It's going good. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you, and so great to have you both. And I'm gonna start off with a service announcement for next week. As next week the show will be out, but it will be mostly a best-of episode with some of the most interesting news covered over the last 8 months, and a few extracts from the one-to-one interviews I've recorded at events as well. So, there's going to be a little bit of news at the beginning if there's anything breaking that happens this week, but otherwise it's going to be mostly a best-of. And part of why I'm doing it is because usually there is a so-called summer lull, especially in these couple of weeks where a lot of people are away. But judging from this week's lineup, there's no lull at all, and there's lots of news to cover. So that's great. And we can start off by a news that was broken by Greg Sandoval from The Verge last night about the NMPA being on the warpath with a YouTube multi-channel network Fullscreen. So Fullscreen manage the channels of NBC Universal, Nintendo, Lexus, and lots of other big players on the video space. And the news spurred a number of pieces overnight because it touched a chord within the music tech industry, since it brought up a problem that I wasn't even aware of myself. So the National Music Publishers Association has filed a suit against Fullscreen after ascertaining that some of the videos that are hosted by the network were featuring music for which songwriters were not getting paid. So this is just one episode, but it appears as if other MCNs may face this issue as well. So this could kind of act as a testbed case for other suits that may come in the future. So one thing that I didn't know at all is that from the articles that I've read on the web in the last 12 hours or so, YouTube does have content deals with rights holders, and so if Average Joe uses a Kings of Leon song on their video, then Kings of Leon will get a share of the publishing, or the writers of the song will get a share of the advertising money that is generated through that video. But that doesn't work if the Average Joe content producer joins a network, so a multi-channel networks. In that case, the agreements don't work anymore, and the payments to the songwriters apparently stop, which is really a big deal because, of course, as soon as if you're a cover artist, say, you get tons of followers on YouTube, and then you join one of these networks, and then suddenly the songwriters of the songs you covered stop receiving money. I may have the facts not 100% right, but this is a sort of gist of the story so far. Olivia, what is your take on this, and do you think this is potentially a big problem for aggregators of content on YouTube?
Well, I'm not like a specialist of YouTube, but I've been quite involved in all the publishing issues while I was working for aggregator, the Orchard, and it's true that very often the publishing side was it's a very complex business, first of all, and second, the innovation is going faster than collecting society to adapt to the services. So we have been seeing huge struggles to actually make this legal. In this case, I feel it's more like a flag saying hey, we now need to solve this because basically you guys are doing a lot of money, and the market is getting more and more mature. And I'm not too worried about these kind of issues because when you see the explosion of YouTube and how many businesses are built on top of the platform now. I feel it's just like adapting to the market and get something solid. And if we take back this like a few years ago, like in the US, the license for the mechanicals basically, they were like really a gray area, and everybody remembers of RedFlow, which really built a service that was really basically solving that issue. And they succeeded. They did a big exit with Google buying them. So I think it's just like now the market adapting to an issue more than like a real danger or something like this.
Yeah, sure. Yvette, what's your take on this? Do you feel like there is a real problem here? I mean, if to me it feels like there is, and if so, does it need to be solved via lawsuits, or is there a better way for you?
Well, I mean, it is a big issue, as Olivier said as well. But I mean, I think we need to look at how people are using YouTube, particularly musicians. I mean, it's a promotional tool first and foremost. So obviously we need to get the rights issues sorted. But I think, we need to be careful with lawsuits, because what you don't want is actually, which probably isn't quite the same thing, but you don't want to end up suing fans who are just using their favorite musicians' songs to sort of make videos and things like that. So I think there's just a little bit of a grey area that we need to be careful of when we...
I mean, in this case, it would be the suit would be against the aggregator that is I guess, monetizing against these videos in a much broader way. So I don't think it's targeted at fans, but like in terms of where you see the YouTube space going, and because of these channels growing so much, do you feel like there is a danger for songwriters of not getting as much money as they should be getting?
There absolutely is, but then also for the songwriters, they're reaching out to a new audience, and I think that's what YouTube is a promotional tool in that sense. So there's sort of a fine balance there that needs to be kept.
Absolutely. It's quite an interesting discussion, and I mean, it's only about 12 hours. I've been live for 12 hours, this story, so I'm sure we'll see a lot more commentary coming on and see this lawsuit evolve in the next few weeks, and I'm going to keep a close eye on it just to see where it ends up going. And staying on this subject, actually, we covered the new startup by Jeff Rice called Audium on the show a few weeks ago, and he was actually a guest on the show when they announced it, and now they've announced raising $500,000 in a round of funding, and having collected upwards of $50,000 for artists since the launch just a few weeks ago. So investors include TuneSat CEO and COO, plus Tom Coyne from PTC Advisors and Jonathan Siegel. And Audium looks to recover money that is left on the table by independent artists on YouTube by identifying and monetizing videos using their music. So the company claims 25% commission on the money it recovers, but it also offers to administer and collect ad money from the artist's own videos, passing 100% of the revenues to them. And so talking to Jeff, it's clear that this is not just a business idea, but it's kind of a personal mission for him to help independent musicians and put them on an even plane with the bigger guns of major labels and large independents. So Yvette, do you feel like independent musicians are in need of this kind of help? And it's interesting to see how sort of this company is placing itself almost as the TuneCore of YouTube, in the way that it's trying to help musicians get to a source of revenue that they wouldn't be able otherwise to touch. Do you feel like that's a fair comparison?
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think it's something that definitely needs to be solved, especially going forward. And YouTube's only getting it bigger, and more people are using it to stream music and the like. But again, going back to my point before about the promotional tool, I think especially with independent artists, there's such a YouTube's so powerful for them. Look at all the artists that have become famous through sharing their music. And I think we need to continue with that. I think there's a real paradigm shift here where people, can we really charge them? Can we really charge users to listen to one song? Or do we need to switch to maybe like a freemium model where the basic experience is free, but actually you're paying for other things? So, gigs and merchandise and things like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting channel, but Olivia, on your front, you worked on the independent sector quite a lot, and of course the Orchard aggregating music from a lot of different sources, from bigger labels to small independent artists. Do you feel like that's a fair comparison to say that sort of Audium is placing itself as TuneCore was placing itself 10 years ago, but on the YouTube field, where it's actually allowing, whilst TuneCore was allowing people to access iTunes, in this case, Audiam is allowing people to access a revenue stream on YouTube that they can't access at the moment.
Well, absolutely. I think it's great to, first of all, it's great to see Jeff back on the playground.
Yeah.
Because obviously he wasn't expecting the year he got.
Yeah.
So it's great to see him back. And then like talking about YouTube, and there's one thing, maybe I don't see YouTube as a promotional channel. I think it actually became like one of the biggest revenue for a lot of artists, being like from majors or independent sector. And if you look at Ingrooves, Believe, The Orchard, etc., they have been like very aggressively taking like care of the videos as well.
Yeah.
And it's really a revolution, because for years a video was really like promotional, and there were like no revenue expected except for the publishing. But right now, if you look at YouTube, we could argue that it's actually the most successful music service in the world, and it's video.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. And then about Audiam, I see this actually as like the missing department of TuneCore, maybe.
Yeah.
And then the question is like, is a company only doing this enough or not? And my feeling is like the distribution, if we talk about distribution, is the full ecosystem is getting more and more complex. And actually what you do on YouTube impacts on SoundCloud, on Spotify, on Facebook, etc. And my question is like, is it possible for Jeff and his team to rebuild an ecosystem starting from YouTube?
Yeah.
And that's like something I can answer, but my feeling is like the ecosystem is more complex than just like one channel.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. I think like it's weird looking at this, how it's in a way similar the situation in the video streaming space is to the situation in the MP3 sales space a few years ago, where iTunes was really 90+% of the market. And there were a few other players, but they weren't really particularly, they were relatively small. And in the same way, YouTube seems to have grabbed 90+% of the video market. I mean, I don't know the figures, but it feels that way anyway. And in a similar way, that becomes the predominant form of distribution for video. So
absolutely,
we'll see how that works out. And moving on to talking about discovery, this week Spotify rolled out an important new tab for its iOS and Android mobile experience, although I haven't managed to get hold of it on my phone quite yet, but I assume it's one of those gradual rollouts, and it's simply called Browse, and the feature places a spotlight on human curation. So that's thanks in part to the acquisition of the startup Tunigo a few months ago. So the Browse tab will include artist activity related playlists for working out or relaxing, but also mood related playlists, so you can pick if you're angry or relaxed or happy, you can pick the right playlist for you. So this places a focus on human curation that wasn't as present beforehand. Of course, you could access a lot of playlists, but there wasn't a core functionality within Spotify that allowed you to find the right ones for you at any particular time. And it kind of looks as if they are reacting to or responding to the upcoming launch of Daisy, that is really has been doubling down on advocating its human curation side, and really talking about how important it is for them to present music curated by humans. Olivia, do you feel like that's a reason why they rolled this out? And what do you make of it? Do you feel like it is going to help users and potentially drive them away from switching to another service, or from using an internet radio service like SongsUp, for example?
So answering to Daisy, I think it's too early.
Yeah.
We are expecting something, but yet I didn't touch it, and I think no one touched it.
No one's seen it.
But like on on like maybe on the strategy of Spotify and what's going on for the company. If we step back a little bit, like for years now, they have been like super aggressive as like acquiring users.
Yeah.
And one of the things that make them so successful is definitely the integration with Facebook, the timeline that really like help them to massively grow the community. But then when you have this huge base of users, I think the challenge is actually retention. How can I get the users to go back on my app every day, and what can I solve for them in terms of experience? And I'm actually starting to get very excited about the thing that from doing my playlist and searching for the artist, etc., services will be more and more pulling you information, which is like really, they have so much data that now they are able to give you like a great experience, and that's the Discover.
Yeah.
But in the other hand, that's one side, and I think they did actually quite a great work, still like really the beginning, but still I think curation matters, and Deezer has been actually building their success, especially in France, with the fact that there's a touch, Deezer Touch, and it was actually the only service I've ever seen refusing to highlight some big releases actually at the time, because they were saying this is not our audience.
Yeah.
So having like curated playlist. I don't know if it's going to be from well-known people or not, but it's definitely something that I would buy. I mean, I would consume, because it's not that easy, and we are like the worst to talk about this because we're passionate about music, and we know quite a bit. I hope so, but actually, like most of the users, they like music, but they're actually consuming. Yeah. It was through MTV, radio, and we are getting there. And if you can get like, this morning I went for a run, if I could get like a playlist for my run ready to go, I would definitely use it. So I think it's really about this retention and getting the users active.
Yeah, absolutely. Iveta, this is your home turf on the Discovery front. So how do you feel this tab would potentially play out for Spotify? And it's interesting to see also how it marks a kind of a separation between what is a human-led curation and what is the more automated side, which is in the Explore tab, where they can show you like the gigs that are nearby you or artists that may be similar to the ones that you are following or that you like. Whilst this is more personal and it's in two separate tabs. Do you feel like that's a strategy that could work for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really exciting new area for Spotify. And I think, it's that area that's really difficult to do well, because with the machine algorithms, you can, really harness all that data. But with the curation, you're always going to have issues with scale and taste. Because I think curation is great. And, I listen to the radio, but I trust the voices on the radio that the DJs, and there's some authority and credibility there. And I think that's what they'll need to build in to this curation, and making sure that, the voice that they're using is one that people trust. And that might be building collaborations with other magazines or editorial in some way. It is a great step, and I'm really excited to use it once it comes through on my update.
Yeah, sure. And sort of looking at what you guys are doing a rich theme, so how do you see your recommendation side evolving as well?
Yeah, I mean, R1's it's trying to cover this grey area between human curation and machines. And R1 is basically going back to musicians and looking at their musical connections. So that's how, in terms of if the artist has worked with someone, then obviously you'd think there was some reason behind that. And it's the artist sort of choosing who they want to work with. And that's how I discover music, when I read sleeve notes and read NME and whatever.
Absolutely.
So
that's an interesting sort of take on that. I don't think has been done quite yet in a mainstream way, to look at the correlations between music as well.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
And so looking at the last thing I wanted to cover on Spotify was the fact that they're also launching a messaging service that apparently would allow people to have a conversation, real-time conversation on the service based on sharing music, obviously. That's going to be on the browser-based service only for now, whilst the new browse tab is going to be on the mobile device only for now. We know the apps are only available on the desktop client for now. So my last question to Spotify was asking how important it is to try and, especially as the service is obviously aiming for a mainstream audience, to try and bring all this together to offer a more consistent experience across device, because now, of course, if you're using the desktop client and you move to mobile, you don't have access to apps. If you're used to the browse interface on mobile, once it gets settled, you won't be able to find it on the client quite yet. And do you think that's a problem, Olivia?
I would be curious to see what is like the percentage of usage on mobile, because in 1 year it's quite amazing to see the shift on even like personally. I'm not actually using from my computer Spotify anymore. And I think I really agree on one thing, is like there is one thing that I'm a bit like scared of, or it's like there's so many different ecosystems, and a lot of them are closed. I'll take one example is Sonos, for instance. How they're going to be able to get you with the same experience that you get on the Spotify. And that's something that is really, I think it's really an issue. And you see now also like TV getting part of the ecosystem. So it's going to be like, how can we get the best experience? Whatever is the device you use, how can you get a great experience? And I think it's still like quite complicated at this stage, and we can see that it's even complicated when it's your own company. Spotify as a company, mobile or desktop, it's already an issue. So I think it's like the more you're going to be open, the better it will be for consumers.
And in fact, I was talking to the guys at a company called Pulse Locker that relaunched sort of their 2.0 service this week, and they are a streaming service that is based on that essentially is aimed at mostly DJs and dance music enthusiasts and all that side. So it's quite aims for this niche worldwide audience, and they decided to abandon their native app and go for a web-based interface because it was easier to maintain. They didn't have to deal with updates. They could go cross-platform and across Windows and Mac without having to create a whole new native application. So do you think companies are still struggling to figure out exactly where they need to be and where they can make the best impact?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it all depends on your audience. I mean, if you're looking at DJs, maybe mobile apps aren't the way to go, because a lot of mixing does take place at desktops. But I think if you're looking at the general market, mobile consumption is only going to go up. So I think they say at the end of next year there's going to be more mobile phones than people, or something ridiculous like that. So it'd be silly to sort of neglect that area, which is so growing and important.
Yeah, sure. And I am inclined to move on to talking quickly about TVs, just because Olivia mentioned it, and I think it's a good segue. I had these stories actually on the lineup for last week, but we didn't have time to cover them. First of all, there was, of course, the launch of the Google Chromecast. So Google launched this $35 device, and I'm sure most listeners will have already heard about it, which is essentially just a little dongle that you attached at the back of any HDMI-enabled TV or screen, and allows you to connect to a variety of services and also to connect your Chrome browser on your laptop or tablet to this dongle, so that you can stream anything into that. So that's really cool, and from the reviews that I've seen, a number of services already work on it, like Pandora, for example. And the other interesting development in this is that the UK entertainment giant BSkyB launched its own box in the UK here for non-subscribers, which costs only £9.99, and this is a little Apple TV-like streaming device, which comes with a variety of services already built in, and it includes the option of subscribing to Spotify as well, which is will have the Spotify app right from the outset, making it a very compelling entry into the streaming market for more mainstream folks that may just see this little box for £10 and say, I'm gonna pick it up and do something with it. So from my side, I'm seeing a rise in consumption from Apple TVs, but that's still related to the video side. And so Yvette, how do you feel about the TV actually taking over your music consumption as well? And do you feel like that's an area that we'll see develop in the next few months too?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see BSkyB doing this new stuff. But I think for me, I can listen to music on my TV now, but I don't, and I think there's a big issue there because we haven't really moved on apart from, it's still point and click when you look at television as a technology. And I think we need to move on from that and make it, a compelling user experience before the mass market comes to listen to music on their television.
Yeah. Olivia, do you want a Chromecast?
I have no TV.
Well, you can use it on a monitor for if it's HDMI enabled as well.
It's very interesting because I have no TV because the TV I actually don't feel I need one. Yeah. And I think what is interesting is TV is not a TV anymore, and it's getting toward a bigger screen, I'd say. And what is really interesting is that typically the TV was a closed ecosystem. Yeah. And you would get your screen and then your box. And basically it was really hard to get something from outside of that ecosystem getting into your screen. Now with Apple TV, Chromecast, and different other devices, basically it's becoming the screen is becoming part of the ecosystem, and what is interesting is that the service matters more than your TV. Yeah. So basically it's starting to be open, and you use the same services but with a different experience. Yeah. And that's a big shift. And that drives me to soon getting a new TV because I think that basically the experience that I was not happy with, which was broadcast and not necessarily what I wanted, is becoming a lot more appealing. Yeah. So it can be watching something on TV, but also for a lot of people, TV is still the center of your house. Yeah. So seeing Sonos, also they launched recently their TV loudspeakers. There's a lot of activity around the TV, and I think the experience is getting better and better.
Yeah, and I'm super excited about the Chromecast just because it has this little feature that I'm sure it's not actually that hard to implement if you work in sort of video sort of scenarios, but it automatically switches on your TV if you send something to it, and it switches your TV to the right HDMI input to be able to view the image and hear the sound, which I think is huge because the pain in the neck that it is to try and do a stream to the Apple TV from my Mac. That consists of me getting up and trying to find my TV remote, switching it to the right HDMI input from a DVD player, and then being able to do everything. I think it's a huge improvement, and I'm surprised Apple haven't managed to crack that nut quite yet, but I'm sure they'll come to it.
No more cables.
No more cables.
Yeah,
amazing.
If they could get rid of the dishes outside the houses, that would be great as well.
Yes. Although that probably won't happen anytime soon in the UK, given Sky's stronghold If it was a Virgin cable world, that would happen. But yeah, I think Sky, at least in the UK, is way too ingrained in the market at this point. But cool. It was good to talk about TVs because I think it's quite an interesting story. I wanted to move on to talk about the importance of artist-gated fan communities, because we had a story from Hypebot this week talking about the company Stage Block. So this company is specialized in building websites that are kind of a crossover between WordPress and Squarespace and stuff like that. But they've actually delved specifically into music fan sites, and they've built two pretty huge ones that have recently launched, which is Tennessee Kids for fans of Justin Timberlake and Rebel Soldier community for fans of Kid Rock. So in a sense, this is kind of similar to the Backplane's Little Monsters site for Lady Gaga, and it's part of a movement that is seeing artists, at least large artists, trying to gain control over the data and communications of their fans, and perhaps not just for data purposes, but also for being able to reach them, to communicate with them, to interact with them in a more straightforward way. So Olivia, this is very much your domain, considering what you're doing at your turn and how you're seeing fans interact with each other. And so do you feel like this is an interesting trend and we're going to see that continue? And do you think that's applicable to also smaller artists, or does it only work with huge artists with millions of fans as a base?
Yeah, I think like it's really great, and there's like quite a lot of companies or artists that have now their own community. Lady Gaga got the littlemonster.com. Then you have This Is 50 and for 50 cents. And I think it's really interesting that it's really important actually that artists take care of their fans. If you think about the relationship in between the fans and the artists, massively changed in the last decade, from like Michael Jackson, Untouchable, to Lady Gaga now, where you pretty much feel you can touch her. The relation is really now in the eyes, and it's really important that you get this channel. Then having your own your own website, your own community, it's very interesting for super fans, and it drastically helps you with direct-to-fan sales and getting this reach that is instant. Then if I put myself as a fan, there is like a few challenges you're gonna face as an artist. The first and to me the most important is like fans, they like to be there with their friends, and they like to talk about many topics, not only just one artist. And they're like asking for for fun, and fun is actually innovation. So Snapchat right now is trending. Your turn, we're like seeing a massive growth with like teens, and basically what they want to have fun, and they want like to have a strong, like something very unique or different to play with. So the challenge for a website like this is like, how can you follow the innovation, and can you get enough budget basically to get there? So
can you essentially make all these services easily accessible from your own website in a way that is?
If it's a website, and then like if you look at right now the way fans are connecting with the artist, it's a 75% through mobile. So can you are you waking up this morning and okay, I'm gonna go on Lady Gaga, or are you going on Instagram where everyone is talking about everything, all your friends are there? That's the challenge. But I think for super fans, it's key, and it's important to get this. And it can be like a website with this community, or it can be something like more like Topspin, where you get those emails and you don't necessarily offer an experience, but at least you have this reach.
Yeah. And Yvette, what's your take? I mean, one point that I would make is that the biggest challenge for these sites is as much as the community sort of it generates its own content and its own conversations. Artists always go through phases. So unless you're Rihanna and you're releasing one album every year, and so your cycle is essentially constant, if you have like a 4-year or 4.5-year break like Lady Gaga did between her first and second album, and then you go off on tour, there's not a lot of news about you for a few months, or there's an injury and you can't communicate a lot for a few months. So how do you keep fans sticking to that community, and is that like an inherent danger in building them, is the fact that the traffic might go up and down according to the cycles of release that you're into as well? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, it's a danger, but I think, look at Lady Gaga's fans. They didn't stop talking about her in the 4 years that she wasn't, that she didn't put out a record. So I think as long as you build in that grassroots community from the very beginning, you can't alienate those people. You need them, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be, putting content on the site and potentially driving the conversations when the artist isn't, as active as when they're touring or putting out a record.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's. I think it could be a. I mean, going back to what I started saying at the beginning, is a bit interesting to see a smaller artist and see how they deal with this, because even somebody like Amanda Palmer, who is so good at social media, I don't think she's got a community, at least not as far as I know, that she keeps in a particular place. She's active on Twitter, she's active on blogs, she does a lot of different stuff. And Twitter maybe is her main platform, I guess, but she doesn't have her own channel exclusively for her fans. So if she hasn't done something like that, then I'm wondering what the what the uptake might be for independent artists that may have an audience of maybe tens of thousands instead of hundreds of thousands. It could make for a relatively quiet forum group on a website.
But like Olivier was saying, it's really important that you want the official news from your favorite artist, which was, and that's important. But also there is a social element to fan sites, because, they want to interact with people that have similar interests to them. And I think that's important as well. So that's.
Yeah, absolutely.
But personally, as like a new artist, I think your strategy is like, you don't want to have super fans hidden in the walled garden, because they're going to talk in between and you have no reach. So my strategy would be more like being like Crisp. You need to be on every party, on all the parties. So you don't need to go on every social platform, but you need to select a few ones where you're going to really try to get this reach and basically get exposure. Because and that's super, like having your own community. I think it's really reserved for a handful of artists. You need to reach like a certain level, because as you said, you need to get some content. You need to get some activity to get the experience like interesting. So I think it's really a very few artists that can do that, and then it's really about using the fun where the fun is happening. You need to get to be present there.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about fan engagement, I would love for DMT listeners to email or tweet or talk about their thoughts on the stories that we commented. As I mentioned at the beginning, the handle is @DigiMusicTrends, or you can email contact@digitalmusictrends.com, and if you email with your thoughts on anything that we covered this week, I may well read your email in the next episode or anything like that. So please do write on. And I know it's always hard on podcasts, because you have an average idea of who your listeners are, but you always discover new people that are listening that never got in touch with you, and they're like, "Oh, I've been listening to your show for 4 years now." It's like, "Oh, well, you could have emailed or something like that." But, so that's definitely a call out that I make to the listeners to get in touch and let me know what you're doing, and if you're enjoying the show, if you'd like to see any changes to it. And finally, I want to talk about fantastically abstract story, and I think we can just go wild on this one, which is the ABI research on the predictions of the development of streaming up until 2018. So this week there were some very interesting forecasts from ABI on the development of streaming and streaming revenues. And if you ask me, like all these forecasts that we're seeing over the past few months on the potential uptake of streaming they don't seem to make any better sense than Yahoo's weather forecast for London for the most times on the iPhone. So, what happened is that ABI Research, which is an analyst firm, is predicting that paying streaming services subscribers will grow to 191 million worldwide by 2018, and the total revenues generated by that business model will top 46 billion cumulatively by the end of that year, since the beginning of the streaming model. So the interesting part of it is that doing the maths, since the cumulative revenues for streaming forecast by ABI until the end of this year are going to be 5 billion, that would mean a 21 billion revenue. 21 billion? Sorry, I'm making the wrong maths. 46, 40, 40, no, sorry. 41 billion in revenues generated between 2014 and the end of 2018. And this is a really high number. I mean, it's it would essentially mean that there would have to be, given that the industry last year made 16.5 billion in revenue, recorded industry globally, and digital was only 5.6 billion of that. It would mean that streaming would have to grow so much that it would actually overtake the cumulative revenues of the whole of digital last year. And it would actually have to become more than that. It would have to become around 40% of the total recorded music revenues for the world by 2018. So, it's a pretty optimistic forecast, and I'm sure the guys at Spotify's, Deezer, Ardio, and the like, and Google Play, and would be pretty happy about it. But just making here, we're just making wild speculations about your feelings on the market and how it will go. Do you feel like this is like thinking we're going to be driving flying cars, or more? Perhaps more realistically, driverless cars in 5 years, or do you think it's more attainable?
I think the car analogy is actually a really good one, because if you went back to the 1920s and asked Ford how many cars they think they're going to sell, I don't think they'd imagine that. It's massive, and I think the scope for streaming is huge. And maybe the numbers are, the numbers are numbers, but the trend is upwards. And I think once we work out the delivery mechanism, like I said before, mobile's growing. Once we can make that work, once we can get into kitchens and cars, which is where people still use, they buy CDs to listen in cars still. Once we can fix that problem, I think, it's not unrealistic to say it could be over 191 million,
Yeah. And Olivia, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, I guess in the music industry, we always have to be wary, because it seems to evolve also from a consumer perspective slower than analysts predict. Like if you'd seen analyst reports from the early 2000s, you would have thought that CDs by today would have been almost extinct, but they're still like a huge part of the market. As I said, total revenues 2012 for the recorded industry were 16.5 billion, and digital was only 5.6 billion, so 34% of that. So how do you feel like that's going to evolve? And do you feel like we're going to be slightly disappointed once again in terms of jumping the ship and thinking that everybody is going to join the digital bandwagon?
Well, it's always hard to comment on forecasts like this.
Sure. It's kind of wild speculations.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But who could have predicted such a nice summer in London? So maybe it's the same for streaming. I don't know. But for sure, for me, like the interesting thing is like people start to be really positive and they see like a nice future for the music industry. We might stop to complain all the time and take the wagon for success with it, which is really exciting. But in terms of like, is that doable? I still feel it's early stages for streaming, and there is some big actors that are still not yet there. So we always talk Google, it's still very early stages. Apple, early stages. There are like other companies that could take like, I'm thinking about Amazon, for instance, that could come up with something also really interesting. And if you think about the number of like web consumers today that are not active on music, because download is just not an answer to their needs. Or I think it's still very, very early stages. So I would love to see this as a real and if we don't reach that, that's fine. But I think there is the potential for sure for a really bigger market.
Yeah, that would be amazing and very exciting, especially if we manage to work out all the kinks that we're experiencing in the last few months in regards to where the money is going and how much money the artists are actually getting from what is being paid out to streaming services, which I'm sure will be worked out over the next year or so. And you mentioned Google. Actually, there was a story that I'll quickly mention before we close, where Billboard reports that Google has been looking at a potential distribution deal for its all-access music subscription service with Verizon. So Verizon potentially feeling a little bit the heat of AT&T's rumors over a potential Daisy partnership, and also its acquisition of Cricket, which by proxy made them the owners of Move Music, which is a really big sort of lower price subscription service in the US. And so that's an interesting news. We'll see whether anything comes out of it, and definitely interesting for both Google and Verizon, because Verizon's got 100 million wireless customers, and Google definitely needs to make some headways with its streaming service, which is not yet made a huge impact on the industry yet. And another couple of news I want to quickly mention before we close is Deezer launched a new Windows 8 application in all of its the territories in which it operates. So of course commitment to Windows 8 and commitment to making the service available on as many platforms as possible. There's a cool article by Ed Chrisman and Alex Pham on Billboard called The Pandora Wars, which you should check out. I'm gonna add a link in the show notes, which makes a bit of a summary as to what's been happening on the Pandora front, and we've been covering that a lot on the show as well in the last few weeks. And there's an interesting article on the Pando Daily called The Music Industry Explained. I'm also going to add the link to the show notes there, which is essentially a compendium of the modern music industry, and it tries to explain a little bit how things work. And I think that's all for this week. Actually, the last thing I want to talk about is South by Southwest. The registration opened on the 1st of August. So I suggest, if you have already decided to go, that you get your ticket and you book your accommodation, because from what I've heard, at least for Interactive, it's already gone. So I'm talking to a few people on Airbnb to try and scramble some accommodation for that, hoping that the press pass goes through. Fingers crossed. And that's it, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. I just wanted to go ask you both what's going on at your companies. So Yvette, what's happening at Rich Theme, and anything that we should look out for other than heading to richtheme.com?
Yeah, well, we're working on our version 2. So we put out a prototype, and now we're just collecting feedback, and it will be ready in the next few months.
Awesome.
But do go to the website now. It works.
That's great. Perfect. And Olivia, on your turn, or what's happening? And do you want to plug the API, for example, or anything like that?
So sure. That for us, there are many things happening. Like one of the focus is definitely mobile, and a strong focus on growth. We have a really interesting user base with a lot of teens, and it's so the focus is really on growing that, and we're really happy with the current trends. Yeah. And then the API is something that we have been very focused on, which is on your turn you express using expressions, and expressions are ready-made templates. And one of the key for us was to give to the developers the ability to create those expressions on the fly, and to push this to the community. So it's still very early stages for this, but anyone who's interested, just feel free to shoot me an email, olivia@yourturn.com, and I'm happy to give some info on the API.
That's awesome. So go and check out richseam.com and yourturn.com. And thanks so much for joining me on the show, Olivia and Yvette. And thank you for watching and or listening. So DMT is available on a variety of channels. As I mentioned, subscribe to the weekly newsletter on digitalmusictrends.com for weekly updates, or subscribe to the YouTube channel on youtube.com/digitalmusictrends. You can also email contact@digitalmusictrends for feedback, or if you know people that would be good guests on the show, please let me know, as I'm scheduling the show up all the way up to December, because there's going to be a lot of traveling involved and trying to get the schedule in line until the end of the year. Thanks so much for listening again. Have a great week. Until next time. And that's all for this week. I really hope you enjoyed the show. Check out digitalmusictrends.com and sign up to the weekly newsletter.